José Mujica. This man led Uruguay from 2010 to 2015 and was recognized as the world's poorest president due to his modest lifestyle. The Daily Mail characterized him as, finally, a politician who is honest about his expenses. And indeed, José Mujica, also known as El Pepe, is truly an example of an unusual primacy and fairness that is not typical of an ordinary politician. From a young age, Mujica was interested in the civic life of his country. Seeing Uruguay preparing for an armed revolution and dictatorship, he joined the ranks of the left-wing guerrilla movement called the Tupamaros. He aimed to oppose the politics and build a just society. His organization consisted of 50 to 100 core members, with thousands of activists supporting them. The movement financed itself through the ransom of captured officials, financiers, and industrialists, expropriation of banks, and collecting a revolutionary tax from the affluent segments of society. Later, El Pepe became one of the main representatives of this organization. He participated in numerous shootouts and armed conflicts, which resulted in him sustaining 6 different injuries. The organization faced harsh control, and after obtaining the necessary documents, the police began to track and subsequently imprison activists. José Mujica was one of them. He spent a total of 14 years in military prisons during that time. He also attempted escapes and endured solitary confinements. He spent 2 years in complete isolation at the bottom of a well. According to his own recollections, he conversed with frogs to keep from going insane. However, even such a long sentence could not change El Pepe's plans. After his release from prison in 1985, when Uruguay returned to democracy, he fully dedicated himself to politics to change the lives of others. Following his release, the future president was freed in 1985 when Uruguay returned to democracy. After some time, Mujica became a senator, then Minister of Livestock, Agriculture, and Fisheries. In 2008, he was officially nominated as a presidential candidate for Uruguay, and in 2010, he was elected as the president of the country. El Pepe never hid that it was his years in prison that largely helped shape his views on life. With his entry into high-level politics, the youthful zeal of Robin Hood gave way to the understanding that new methods were needed to combat poverty and injustice. And he decided to start with himself. This is where the story of the world's poorest president begins. In Uruguay, the official monthly salary of the head of state is $12,500. When José Mujica took office, he immediately declared that he only needed 1/10 of that money to live. His words were followed by real actions. Mujica donated 90% of his income each month to social needs and charity. As the head of state, he refused to move to the presidential residence and continued to live in a small house on the outskirts of Montevideo. The modest home of the presidential couple doesn't even have central water supply. Family possessions included an old Volkswagen and a couple of tractors. The president's security was limited to just 2 police officers. There was only one formal suit hanging in the closet for official meetings. However, behind this seemingly eccentric asceticism of Mujica, there were real results at the national level during his 5 years of governing the country. The unemployment rate was nearly halved. Currently, Uruguay has the lowest unemployment rate in all of Latin America, and the number of poor people has significantly decreased. For government purposes, both budgetary funds and the president's personal resources were allocated for social and infrastructure projects. For example, as initiated by the president, every student in the country is provided with a computer free of charge. The state also covers education expenses and sets prices for essential goods. The expansion of civil rights under Mujica was accompanied by a constant growth of GDP. Uruguay is considered the safest and least corrupt country in Latin America. President Mujica also gained fame for his liberal reforms. He legalized same-sex marriage, abortions, and became the first president to lift the ban on marijuana consumption. The global community greeted these measures with special enthusiasm. In 2014, Mujica even nominated the Nobel Peace Prize for the marijuana law. However, the president himself claims that he is far from being a liberal and that his actions are guided by common sense and care for his people. Thus, the legalization of marijuana was a necessary measure to combat the underground drug trade. In the modern era, where ignoring market logic is impossible, it is a kind of reasonable adaptation. At the same time, no one talks about full and widespread legalization. The state has a monopoly on the trade of marijuana. However, its consumption should not exceed a reasonable norm. Therefore, individual doses that can be purchased at pharmacies are being discussed. Mujica achieved his goals after marijuana became accessible. The popularity of heroin and cocaine sharply declined, and Uruguay ceased to be a profitable place for drug trafficking. By lifting the bans on abortions, marijuana, and same-sex unions, as well as declaring himself an atheist, José Mujica earned great respect while still valuing his country's centuries-old traditions, especially the institution of the Catholic Church. After leaving the presidential post, Pepe had the right to remain a senator until 2020 and continue participating in major politics with a decent salary. However, he refused this privilege and the senator's pension. He preferred a quiet, modest, and measured life in his cozy house with a garden. The Mujica couple adopted a three-legged cat and named her Emanuela, making her the third member of the family. In 2014, an Arab sheikh offered Mujica $1 million for his old car, but he refused to sell the Volkswagen, stating that he had no need to transport his three-legged dog. At present, Pepe is 86 years old and continues to live his peaceful life. He fundamentally disagrees with those who dubbed him the poor president. "I am frugal and moderate, but not poor," according to Mujica. He believes that a moderate life is a philosophy for him, while poverty is for those who work for an extravagant lifestyle and always want more. Mujica has no time for such people, neither for himself nor for his life. That's the interesting story of Uruguay's President José Mujica, who had no need for money, did not desire a luxurious life, and preferred to live a simple life according to his philosophy. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and watch other videos as well. This was Hustler. Until we meet again.